Good morning, all. Am I clear at the back? Is it fine? Great, thanks. It's indeed an honor to be back in CMC Vellore, and as always, intimidating to be here. I say intimidating because my aunt, my godmother, studied here in CMC Vellore way back in 1949. And when I spoke to her, she's now settled in Canada, and when I spoke to her last night, she said, "Be careful when you go to CMC Vellore." So it's always intimidating, like I said, to come back here. But always nice to be back with friends. I thank Professor D.J. Christopher and Professor Reginald Alex for inviting me here and to say a few words. It's indeed an honor to be sitting alongside Professor David Koh, whose textbook we've all read in the years gone by. I must confess that I'm not an occupational health physician. I'm more of a community health man, supposed to be working in the villages like our management in St. John's says, but tend to work more with industries, tea and coffee plantations, and to some extent with the healthcare workers in St. John's Medical College. Alex asked me to give you a brief sharing of what we do in St. John's Medical College, and I must say that I'm actually ashamed to see the amount of work which has been done in CMC Vellore over the past 2 years in comparison to what now looks like 43 years of the existence of an occupational health division in St. John's Medical College. To give you a brief history, the Ross Institute of Occupational Health, which was part of the London School of Health and Tropical Medicine, was based in those days in Jorhat in Assam. And for various reasons, they decided to shift down to the southern part of India. And after series of visits to different organizations, they decided to work with the United Planters Association of South India, which is based in Coonoor, and along with the Ross Institute and the Department of Community Medicine here in St. John's Medical College. In '77, we started working with various industries around St. John's itself, basically providing them with medical checkups, which initially were supposed to be occupational health oriented and then slowly turned out to be more of chronic disease management for people with diabetes and hypertension, people in those industries with diabetes and hypertension. We started collaborating with the Regional Occupational Health Center, which luckily for us was based in Bangalore in those days, and did some work with silk weavers, especially in and around Bangalore. Like you'll know, Ramanagaram, Mysore has got a lot of silk weaving facilities there, and we did some amount of work with them. Unfortunately for the department, from 1984 onwards, key faculty members who were associated with occupational health left the institution, and occupational health itself took a beating for about nearly 20 years. And it so happened that when I passed my MD in community health, my professor and head of the department, Dr. Dara S. Amar, who some of you may be familiar with, he urged me to take up occupational health and specifically start working with the tea and coffee plantations. So in a way, we started reviving the work which we did with the tea and coffee plantations. And to say in a few words, that's where we cut our teeth with regards to the work which we do right now in occupational health. The plantation health services basically consisted of us training medical officers. Those of you who are familiar with the plantations will be aware that many of these medical officers are people who've passed medicine many years ago and need to be brought up to date very often with the current trends in medicine, including preventive health like immunizations and preventive antenatal and maternal and child health care. And we did something very unique, which is called the Health and Welfare Audit, which is basically trying to look at the industry's performance vis-a-vis what the national standards are or what even international standards are with regards to health and safety, and more specifically with regards to primary health care in the tea plantation setting. We'll start looking at specific things like water supply systems, where do people get their drinking water from, what are the ways in which these can be purified, and things like that. I must focus a little bit on these health and safety, health and welfare audits, which we conduct pretty regularly with the tea and coffee estates. And what we do there is it's a self-appraisal by the plantation company itself. It's not something which has been mandated by the government or by any other organization. Though nowadays you do have organizations like Rainforest Alliance and a couple of other organizations which want audits to be done. But ours is a little different in that we are looking at basically primary healthcare in the tea plantation setting. And each company has many estates, and in each estate you have what's called a management team as well as the medical team. The medical team generally consists of a medical officer and nurses and other people who work along with the workers in the fields. We do what's called a walk-through inspection, basically walking through these tea estates. We spend nearly 8 to 12 hours doing that in a day and assessing an estate, and try to look at, like I mentioned earlier, primary health care. So in all these years, right up to the year 2010, 2011, our focus was primary health care. And I'm happy to say that most of these TS states have got indicators of primary health care which are far better than the rest of the country. And to that extent, even far better than what it is in Kerala, which is supposed to be the flagship of primary health care, or the indicators are supposed to be the best there. Now, having ensured that primary health care is pretty good in these estates, our focus is now shifted to occupational health and safety in these estates, specifically looking at whether the workers are using protective equipment, noise-induced hearing loss, and other things like that on the estates. We then moved on to start working with the garment manufacturing industry, and that's where we've had a lot of experience in the past 10 to 15 years, and serious work started about 2002. And this again, on the other hand, was mandated by organizations which were buying clothes from India or getting their clothes manufactured in factories in India. And we started working with one company which had 15 factories as part of this project. We conducted a variety of training programs and provided workers with annual medical checkups in these factories. Just a few pictures to show you, we helped these factories set up their health systems. All of us know that the Factories Act demands that a health system or a facility should be provided in the factory for the care of the workers. We helped these factories, in which in those days didn't have any such facility, to start providing or setting up health systems in these factories. We started training their clinical staff, including medical officers who were working in these factories. We started training workers, once again on primary healthcare issues, more than occupational health issues itself. We started doing annual medical checkups for these factories and providing the workers with a series of things to do and not to do, industrial hygiene interventions, looking at safety, in a rather non-hazardous industry like the garment manufacturing industry, soft things like wearing goggles, using protective equipment while stitching, buttonholing, and things like that. And there, again, we started introducing a system of social compliance audits, basically looking at how well that factory is working towards providing their workers with good health and welfare. Like I said, we've set up ambulance rooms, ancillary services were reorganized, medical officers and nurses were trained, welfare officers and managers were oriented to a system of providing health care to their workers. But as I'm sure all of you do realize that when you work with the industry, any factory or any industry for that matter, most of the diseases you will see on the factory shop floor are not necessarily occupational health related. Most of them are primary healthcare related issues which have been brought in from the community, and very often we have to deal with those first before we can start talking about occupational health in these factories. We've interestingly worked with a few other sectors. We've looked at the stone quarrying industry, we've looked at construction industry, and we've looked at zookeepers as well in Bannerghatta National Park in Bangalore, where we've had some interesting experiences working with the workers in those places. Now, this is way back, like I said, in 2003, 2004, and in 2005, we asked ourselves this question. We have a 5,000 employee workforce in Bangalore in St. John's Medical College, and what are we doing about our own health workers in the healthcare industry? Up to that date, we were doing some ad hoc medical checks. We had healthcare waste handlers. We would do a medical check for them once a year, make sure that they were vaccinated, they didn't have any infections, and they were generally taken care of. There were certain other critical departments, like, for example, the dietary, which was serving food to about, in those days, a 1,000-bedded hospital. So is there any problems which we can identify among workers there? So this was what occupational health was, or what we were doing for our own workers in St. John's Medical College right up to the year 2003, 2004. And that's when we said, okay, is there something which we can do more? And as all of you are aware, the Indian Factories Act requires industries to provide occupational health facilities for their employees. But a hospital, however large it is in those days, was not required to provide an occupational health service. In some countries, however, in those days, occupational health services were part of the requirements for accreditation of hospitals. And I'm sure you all will be happy to note that that's becoming part of the procedure now in our country as well. As per the NABH, hospitals have to start providing some amount of occupational health services to their workers, though from what I understand, there's no clarity on that as yet as to what can be done. We had some amount of, a little bit of research going on there. We looked at employee motivation. Again, all soft kind of research among workers, what's motivating them to do good jobs in the mission hospitals. Because of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, small study on needle stick injuries among nursing personnel in a teaching tertiary care hospital. These are small studies we're working at the background. So in 2005, we proposed to the management to start a staff clinic. And as you can imagine, when that kind of a proposal comes from the Department of Preventive and Social Medicine, as it was called in those days, the first question asked was, what staff clinic? Why staff clinic? some people say, we've done this before in St. John's, it never worked, so why do you want to go back to and do it again? And who will come to see you PSM doctors? I mean, you guys are supposed to be looking at toilets and bathrooms in different places. Why do you want patients to come and see you? There hardly anybody will come and see you. But we persisted, and we tried doing some data gathering some data on what was happening in the hospital to find out how many staff were actually visiting doctors in the hospital. And this is, like I said, from the medical records department of the institution, where we found out on an average per month, way back in 2007, 2008, we probably see about 350 to 400 employees were extracting their cards from the MRD to go and visit a doctor. And we perceived, or we suspected, that most of those patients were either going for remedication or for the treatment of primary care issues, and not necessarily occupational issues or things which were very complicated. And this gave us some amount of backing to put forth to the management and reinforce to them the need for starting an occupational health service within the institution. But interesting, the turning point was in the year 2008, when I had a social science student from the UK who visited St. John's Medical College and landed up in my office one day and said, I've been posted to work under you for the next 3 months. And I said, Oliver, what do you want to do? And he said, whatever you ask me to do. And since occupational health of our own workers was a burning issue even at that point of time, I asked him to conduct a survey looking at the health needs of the employees of our hospital and our medical college in Bangalore. And not surprisingly, given the way the system was working in those days, a number of the employees expressed their dissatisfaction with having to wait for a long time to see a specialist or see a doctor. 61% of them said they would be happy to see a general physician or a general doctor, as they called it. And we also were not surprised to find that morbidity in those days was similar to what Alex and I think Dr. Christopher spoke about it earlier. 44% of them surveyed suffered from backache. 43% had not been vaccinated in those days against hepatitis B, and 37% reported stress at the workplace. So these were numbers we came up with, and when we presented this to the management, I think something clicked in that. So then we presented a fresh proposal. We said, let's start providing occupational health service for our own employees internally. And when that starts stabilizing, let's start looking at the external agencies and providing occupational health services for industries. And simultaneously, like Alex was mentioning, we start doing trainings for medical students in academic programs on occupational health and safety. We also start providing training for our nurses, especially on occupational health and safety. We could also be a referral center for other clinical departments in St. John's, where people can refer workers whom they think have got occupational health issues to us for treatment, and also look at services for other hospitals, company doctors, and general practitioners in the city of Bangalore. But I think what we succeeded in achieving in 2008, 2009 was to start off with the Occupational Health Center for our own employees. And this is a list of things which we proposed to the management that we do as part of our services. We refocused on the need that we need to provide primary care as our main focus. We would also be looking, as part of our medical consultations, at occupational health, specific illnesses which the workers have got. We talked about preventive programs, hygiene, health and safety at the workplace, needle stick prevention, HIV post-exposure prophylaxis, hepatitis B vaccines for people at employees at risk, and generally to contribute to the safety and health committees, which in those days were not yet established, but which were going to be established in St. John's in the year 2007, 2008. Long term, we had plans of joining hospital rounds where we would go and see our own employees who were admitted in the hospital for various reasons, basically build a good relationship with them, and also start providing training programs for specific categories of employees who were in need of occupational health education. Luckily for us, the management in the year 2011 sanctioned the creation of this Occupational Health Center, and I'm not too sure how clear that picture is there on the screen, but on January 21st, 2011, we were happy to have an occupational health service and staff clinic established, where patients from the hospital workers of the hospital were expected to come and see us on a regular basis. The personnel basically consists of a permanent medical officer, and this was a resident medical officer in St. John's, who was asked to report to the Occupational Health Center on the mornings of every day, and she's there every day in the morning. One faculty member from the department would be there in the clinic on a daily basis, someone who's attuned to occupational health. 1 or 2 postgraduates from the department. In those days, we had only 6 postgraduates in a year, so we had one postgraduate posted to the occupational health clinic, and now we have 2 of them who are posted to the occupational health clinic on specific days in the week. And we have one nursing aide who's attached to the clinic for registration and small assistance which we require in terms of providing dressings or taking heights and weights and things like that. So this is what our occupational clinic looks like. What we do is to provide a morning primary care clinic for employees and their families who want to come and see us. Treatment of cold, cough, fever, small things like that is what we do there. We do pre-placement examinations and periodic examinations for critical groups. Pre-placement employees, for now in St. John's has become a permanent feature. All employees have to get a pre-placement examination done. And we do periodical medical examinations for employees in critical departments, not all departments. In the afternoons, we do periodic medical examinations for medical students, nursing students, and we have lab technicians and others who are also studying in St. John's. All of them, from last year onwards, have to go through an annual medical checkup to make sure that they're doing well. We have occasional training programs and routine immunizations for people who are working in the hospital. What have we achieved? I mean, if I look back at what we proposed and what we've done so far, the medical consultations and examinations for employees, primary health care is working well. We do have some amount of occupational health specific medical examinations for some workers, especially those who complain of backache and musculoskeletal disorders. We do take part in the hygiene program of the hospital. We do, I will show you a few pictures a little later. We are part of the health and safety programs at the workplace. We haven't managed to work on this needle stick prevention program and the HIV post-exposure prophylaxis program because that already exists with another department in St. John's, and we didn't want to step onto their toes, so we let that be. At some point of time, we hope to integrate and make sure that that's part of our program as well. But we don't directly do needle stick prevention as well as HIV/AIDS, HIV post-exposure prophylaxis. Hepatitis B vaccination has become part of the routine work which we do. We have not yet started visiting patients who are admitted in the hospitals for reasons which I will mention a few slides from now. But we do regular training programs for different categories of workers in St. John's. This is our clinic there, and we have, that's not me, I still have a lot more hair up there, not me, and that's my colleague, Dr. Babu, who's there, and he basically provides primary care. Pre-placement examinations for all new employees of St. John's, periodical medical examinations, and like Professor Ko was saying, we tend to focus on people who are generally neglected. I mean, we're looking at people who are nursing aides, people who've passed 8th standard, 7th standard, can't get a job somewhere else, come and ask for a job in St. John's. They provided a job as a nursing aide, transporting patients, transporting specimens, and things like that, something which nurses will not do. So nursing aides is someone we focus on. We focus on the lower categories of workers as well. We do environmental and medical and hygiene checks, usually with our postgraduates. We do rounds of the wards on and off and look at the campus as well. As all of you know, Bangalore is now pretty famous for the amount of dengue cases we have. So looking at the entire campus, 140 acres, once in a way, walk around, make sure that dengue is not going to be a problem there. Do hygiene checks in the laundry, linen department, and in the dietary sections as often as we can. Health education, like I said, regular programs, especially for the nursing aides. The ones on the picture on the left is one of our postgraduates taking a class for nursing aides. The picture on the right is an induction training program for the nurses who join St. John's on a monthly basis. St. John's, by the way, has a very large turnover of nurses. We recruit close to about 60 to 70 nurses every month. So every 15 days, we have to do this induction training program for nurses. And turnover is because many people come and work in St. John's and they leave for countries abroad. So health education and training is one of the regular things which we do. And hepatitis B vaccination programs has now become a regular activity. Every new employee has to get his titers done if he's been immunized before, or if he says he's not been immunized, we start immunization programs for them immediately. We're also looking at it from a department point of view, looking at critical departments, and we are expecting that workers there, we will do their titers, make sure that their titers are normal before starting vaccinating those who don't have a good levels of titers. Now, what drives us? I mean, this has started off as a I would actually say an experiment, kind of a service for our own employees, but what drives us now is the fact that staff visit the staff clinic for primary health care. Many of them don't necessarily go to the medicine department, general medicine department to see the specialists there. They don't mind coming to us as general physicians to see us for their primary care issues. Happily for us, they start bringing their patients too. Their parents, their children are also brought to the staff clinic for treatment. And humbling for us is the fact that retired staff, including faculty, do drop by at the clinic and say hello to us and get their BP checked or sugars checked, and then they go back. And occasionally you have the odd employee who says that he's benefited from the training which we give him, and he now knows how to lift the trolley or lift patients from a trolley off onto a bed and things like that. So that's what actually keeps us going, the small anecdotes, the small instances which keep us happy and make sure that we do this on a regular basis. Just to give you a picture of what the statistics are, in the year 2011, 2012, when we first started, 3,700 patients approximately. Last year, in the year from July 2014 to June 2015, the number has gone up to 5,651, which means that our uptake is improving. People are recognizing the work which we do, and we are also trying to provide some innovative things. And specifics of what we do in the clinics are as follows. Some mundane things like patients workers who've taken leave or employees who've taken leave have to come to us when they can't get a medical certificate anywhere else and get certified for sick leave. We do pre-employment, like I mentioned, pre-placement to be more specific. We do annual medical checkups. We take care of vaccinations. We do what's called proxy prescriptions. I mean, patients who've got relatives who are back at home who can't come, we provide some amount of proxy prescription. This is an institutional mandate. It's categorized as a separate visit for the hospital, and we look at primarily incident morbidity among the workers who are in the hospital there. So, like I said, last year, I think that last number is a little wrong. It's about 5,700 employees seen in the staff clinic in the year July to June 2015. We, again, like Alex mentioned, with some amount of research also happens. These are some of the studies we've done. We've looked at occupational health and safety measures in ancillary departments, basically looking at the laboratory, looking at dietary, laundry, the CSSD department to see what the safety issues are in these places. A couple of these have been published in Indian journals. We looked at the statutory obligations of the hospital to staff welfare, what welfare facilities are staff supposed to get, and those of you who work with the ESI will know that now, no matter if you work in a hospital or in a school, you have to provide ESI benefits to workers who get less than 15,000 rupees. So our employees in St. John's, many of them don't get 15,000 rupees, so they have a dual benefit of going to ESI as well as utilizing the services in St. John's, and that has its own problems. We looked at morbidity profile of clinical laboratory personnel, a longitudinal study of morbidity among nursing assistants. Like I said, the people who've not been trained formally in nursing, people who work as nursing aides, we look at what kind of morbidity they suffer over a period of 1 year. Morbidity profile of nurses and an intervention, the educational intervention to see whether their knowledge on occupational health and safety has improved. We've now started looking at latex glove allergies. Again, a shot in the dark, someone said latex allergy is common among our nurses in Bangalore. So we said, okay, actually, let's quantify and see how many of them do suffer from latex glove allergy. There's been some amount of focus on shift disorders. Initially, we did a study on nurses, and then we are now following up with a study in healthcare professionals in general. And we're looking at prevalence and pattern of factors associated with work-related musculoskeletal disorders among housekeeping staff. So that's the kind of research we've been doing. We're now trying to move on to doing some research on tuberculin conversion among healthcare workers in St. John's and looking at other small issues of workers in the hospital as well. The question to me often asked is what next? We are still a paper-based department. We are dependent on paper-based records for the medical student, for the entire patients who come there. Not surprisingly, even our workers, it's a paper-based system. I would like to see that shift to an employee-based, employee medical record system based on computerized data. Our interventions, all that I've mentioned here, except for the clinic, are all very random. They're not regular, they're not systematic. Over a period of time, we hope to make this more systematic, regular training programs, regular vaccination programs for those who require it. More core occupational health, as you would have probably seen from the slides I've shown you so far. What we're doing is very soft occupational health, very more primary healthcare focused. We'd like to do a little more core occupational health, things like job hazard analysis, environmental measurements, noise, dust, and things like that. We would like to be involved in multi-centric research because it doesn't look nice for us to say a study done in a tertiary care hospital in Bangalore. All of our studies, the last phrase says in a tertiary care hospital in Bangalore, which doesn't sound good to the medical profession. So multi-centric research is something which we have to do as the years go by. But most importantly, if you were to ask me, we have to have a trained and a certified occupational health physician like CMC Vellore has in the person of Dr. Reginald Alex. This is something which we really lack. I would be lying to you and I would be cheating myself if I say that we are occupational health physicians. We in the Department of Community Health are not necessarily occupational health physicians. The only thing we can claim to have is experience of working with industries, factories, tea estates, and now with hospitals. So it would benefit us a lot if we do have a person who's trained and certified as an occupational health physician. And that's what we'd like to see in the years as they go by. Thank you, Alex and Dr. Christopher, for this opportunity to be here and to give you a small brief about what we do in the Department of Community Health. I'm not too sure if I can take questions. I'm most happy to take questions if you have any questions. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot for your patient hearing.